9 years, and basically their stats are pretty much the same. No one has really overtaken. Kirk's are a little better because he's played a couple of more years, but nothing crazy. So they are the Nickelback of the NFL.
This is
and
how
Creed.
you remind me of when I really passed. Oh my God! All right. Well, now that we've fully reestablished the dominance of Nickelback, coming up next, we will look at some teams reeling off of Week 1 and some big decisions to be made for one franchise next year on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Charlotte Wilder is here for Wilder Wednesdays. Guys, we have some breaking news, okay? On 94 WIP Sports Radio in Philly, Jason Kelce went on the air and said his brother, Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift are a thing. We have the sound.
By the way, how they doing? How those two doing? How those love? No, that's all right.
Hey,
Yeah. Jason, you know everything you say gets quoted on these days. You know that, right?
I know. I get it. And that's the way the world works. And Tony kind of blindsided me with that question on Thursday night. And I don't know. It's hard to answer because I don't really know a lot about what's happening in Travis's love life. And I try to keep, his business kind of his business
Sure.
and stay out of that world. But having said that, man, I think they're doing great, and I think it's all 100% true, and I hope that this soon goes them out. No, I'm joking. I don't really know what's happening. So.
Oh my God!
The reaction of you three kids, and yes, I'll call you kids, to this news is hilarious. Behind the scenes, when you found this out before we came back, just the giddiness of the three of you was hilarious.
What? Okay, first of all, to give us this, we are being given, they are saying, Jason Kelce is telling us that this is true?
It's like finding out Santa Claus is real, which kids, he absolutely
he is. He is.
Yes,
He is.
he is real.
To get it confirmed, because you always gotta like beat around that bush with your parents. No, we just heard it straight from. Now I will say, really interesting calculation here
Weird
by Jason Kelce
verbiage.
to not do this on New Heights.
Yes.
Now maybe it's because, and Dad, you suppose this. Maybe Travis doesn't really want to talk about, which I wouldn't blame him. This for Travis Kelce has to be like in a movie in like Jurassic Park when they're in the car and it's drive to the edge of the cliff and it's dangling over the edge and no one's moving because they don't want it to tip over the edge. I have to imagine Travis Kelce, for as cool as he is and as big a personality is, as Charlotte's dear friend, that even in this situation, he realizes he's in the deep end of the pool right now, Charlotte.
I also don't ever want to count out Taylor Allison Swift's public relations team, led by the one and only Tree Payne. Yes, a woman whose name is Tree. They sort of have an iron grip on the general media, and I have a feeling that anybody who is involved with Taylor probably gets a little bit of a briefing, like, hey, do whatever you want. Here's how it usually goes for people who talk too much about what's going on here. And maybe this is, I mean, Taylor Swift, she told us herself, she's a mastermind. Like there's always something going on in terms of how we are given information. So for Jason to be saying this makes me think, okay, there's something to be had here by both Taylor and Travis in announcing this relationship. Truly though, like it's so when you're someone, Taylor Swift isn't even like a person anymore. She's a person, and then there's the overarching brand myth sort of entity.
She's an entity. It's exactly the word I was going to say.
It's the old Jay-Z line, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman.
Do we think, though, Travis Kelce is going to play by those rules?
Yes.
I mean, Travis Kelce.
Yeah, because it's for his own good. They're like,
balance
hey, man.
of power here is like Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce.
Listen, I get it, but all of a sudden, do we think Travis Kelce is going to succumb to this and all of a sudden be a little less outgoing and a little more meek? I mean, Travis Kelce.
He's never really given us that much. Like even his a shot. What was it? A shot at love? Is that what his dating?
Catching
Kelce.
The show didn't do too well, so I can understand why he didn't really talk about it.
Well, I think go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I think you're absolutely right, Charlotte, is post catching Kelce, especially where I think he went Icarus and flew too close to the sun, he's realized I'd rather keep this part of my life. Like we don't hear a lot about Travis's dating life. We hear more about the football. We see him screaming, you got to fight for your right for party and do all that fun stuff on the stage. But when it comes to this portion of his life, it feels like this is kind of status quo for him.
Something he did say recently, though, on Kristen Cavallari's podcast was that it takes him a while to really trust someone or to really jump into someone. He went long on talking about what a relationship means to him and how you can't just dive right into something, which I think is, for that to come out yesterday and then for Jason to say that today, you kind of have to take those things together as okay, is this a fun thing for them? Is Travis trying to send a message to Taylor that hey, if we put our time in, this could work? Or is it sort of I'm a little scared? It's a very interesting and I don't think accidental PR sandwich or open face sandwich we've got going here.
Jessie, the one thing I would say is cannot be a normal relationship, right? I mean, there's no way this can be normal.
Well, absolutely
normal,
not.
though?
There is no normal for famous people. But my question is, so obviously Jason wasn't told that he can't say anything, or else he would have said, no comment, I'm not going to comment on that. And if it's not true, I would think at this point, one of them would have been like, these rumors are coming out of nowhere, they're not true. Because you also don't want to poke the PR beast of they have nothing to do with each other and they're kind of fanning the flames here. But it was a weird answer. He was like, I don't know much about his love life, but I think it's all true and I hope it goes well for them. So I'm just wondering what they sat him down and told Jason Kelce. They're like, you don't have to deny it, but you shouldn't explicitly confirm it, but you should make sure it seems like nobody told you anything.
Don't be giddy about it.
This is also peak O-line brain. Like, Dad, you and I watched the Kelce documentary last night on Amazon, which was awesome.
Phenomenal.
And the one thing you come away with, and it was really driven home by one moment in particular about the kind of person Jason Kelce is. When he gets up and is addressing the team before the Super Bowl. It's the night before the Super Bowl. They've got cameras in this team meeting. They're in a ballroom where you're playing football, you're on the road in these hotels. A lot of times they rent out the ballrooms and those are turned into your meeting rooms. They bring in a bunch of chairs, overhead projector, all that stuff. But you're inside. It's carpeted floors. You do walkthroughs in there, yada, yada. And Jason Kelce is working himself into a fervor before this. And he's a crier. The one thing you come away from this documentary, he's a crier, big emotional guy. And he's getting worked up talking about how when he gets to moments like this, he thinks about everything it took to get here and the road he traveled here, and talked about how much he respects all his teammates and the road they've traveled there. And in the middle of getting choked up, Jason just hawks the biggest loogie and spits right on the floor inside the carpet in the ball.
And no one flinched. Nobody flinched. Not one person flinched. It was one of the great things.
I mean, me, my dad, and my brother, having been in like a bunch of those meeting rooms in college and
you doing
in the NFL, and me being a spitter, like him just spitting on the floor and not a single person flinching, because I'm sure he does that every week, is a reminder that Jason Kelce is peak offensive line, meaning he is a little bit gross and neurotic. He is incredibly loyal, and he overthinks everything, which means whatever they told him, he is going to worry more about how to execute that to the umpteenth degree than any other person you could have told that information to. So yes, I'm sure he was briefed. And in Jason, he's going over in his mind over and over again. All right, well, how do I have to execute this? Who can I tell and when can I tell? How do I get this information out here the right way?
So I can't do it now because the segment's going to be over, but I have it, and it's for you three. I have other power couples, and I want you guys to tell everybody, do you think this is a bigger power couple than the power couples that I have listed here? Because this is what we're talking about, right? And when I say power couples, both have to be. It can't be one star and one person that nobody knew until that person married them. It has to be two stars.
It can't be Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn.
I was going to say, Mike. Great
I was going to say it too. No, I wasn't, because I don't know who the hell that is. So
yeah, exactly. You sure don't.
I guess that made the point.
And no one else will ever.
All right, I got power couples for you guys at some point.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, perfect. We'll have power couples from my father in honor of the news. Apparently, WIP Sports Radio in Philadelphia, Jason Kelce more or less confirming that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are dating. Who's to say? Who will know? But hopefully us, and hopefully everybody now, as we wait to hear more of this. We'll see.
Can't wait for the song that's going to come out about him at some point.
You know what? We've got Andrew Whitworth coming up in a little bit, who was on that Thursday night desk. We can ask him to see if Jason maybe gave up more goods to the rest of the Thursday night crew for crime about what went on in this situation.
We got to dig for this. We got to dig for this a little bit.
You know what? The only person in sports that can match this star power is Deion Sanders. So coming up next, let's parachute back in on some fresh words from Prime.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. People still cannot stop talking about the Colorado State game. It set a record for viewership for a late night game on ESPN with 9.3 million viewers, ESPN's fifth most watched regular season game over the network for any time slot. And it was not without drama. We saw that dirty hit on Travis Hunter going to result with him being out for 3 weeks. And you might expect him to be up in arms over the whole situation, but surprisingly, he's not.
It's football, though. At the end of the day, stuff like that's gonna happen. So I just stay humble. I mean, hey, he did what he was supposed to do. It's football. Something bad's gonna happen on the field sooner or later. We just gotta get up and fight again. That's what I try to do. Get up and fight. Good thing the doctors stopped me, because if there was no doctors there, I would have still been out there playing.
Very level-headed, cool response from him. You know who is up in arms, though, is Micah Parsons. He made that very clear. He had a little monologue here. Take a look.
One thing that really did throw me off was that hit on Travis Hunter. That was so malicious and dirty. I thought that guy should have got ejected. That was something that you hate to see in football. Life is way bigger past football, but this right here is not okay. Travis Hunter, you don't deserve that, brother. You way bigger than this moment. And the one thing I respect about Travis, he tried to get back and fight and get back in that game. And that tells you a lot about the competitor he is, who he wants to be, and where he's going in life. And Trav, keep balling, brother. You doing something that no one's seen at the college level, to be the efficient and as good as you are both ways in college football. Yeah, you doing your thing, brother.
Yeah, Micah was not happy about that hit. A lot of people weren't happy about the hit. Obviously we all saw it, but Travis Hunter, very level-headed response about it. He said, that's just football. That's what happens. You get up and you go to the next play, basically.
Well, the thing I have the biggest question about here, and for the podcast audience who listens to this later, Travis Hunter delivered this all on a Twitch stream that he operates. Did it all while wearing a giraffe costume.
Yeah,
I want to know if that's a regular thing that he does all the time. Looking at the rest of the room, too. Man, NIL money has glowed up college living situations a lot more than when I was in school. That did not look like a dorm room necessarily. I think there was a fully backlit picture or like mural of Travis Hunter in the background of that. So we've got it pulled up here right now. So it's definitely a glamour shot of Travis Hunter in the background there. Really well-made bed. Yeah. And again,
pillows on the bed, throw pillows.
Although it does look like a twin, and I do feel like I see some cinder block, if I'm not wrong.
You might be right.
Oh, really?
I think Charlotte's right. And he's got he does have a clear plastic Tupperware bin underneath his bed holding stuff. So we know there's not a lot of closet space.
That is a little more college than I gave it credit for originally. What a healthy blend of styles there.
I know, really well done.
Again, I guess I just go back to, I hope he delivers all of his monologues on this Twitch stream in it's not quite furries, but it's like animal costumes here.
I like the look, and he's obviously very comfortable in the look. Now, as far as what Micah Parsons said about the hit, listen, the hit was late and the hit was dirty. In all honesty, Mike, Henry Blackburn could have hit him a lot worse.
Yes.
He basically late threw a shoulder into him and hurt him. He could have run through him and destroyed him, but he didn't. Doesn't mean it wasn't late, doesn't mean him. I disagree on that. But I heard more and more people saying that Minkah Fitzpatrick hit was dirty as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I agreed as much on the Minkah Fitzpatrick one. There's the whole politics of where NFL defensive players are allowed to hit based on a lot of the current rules that I think influences that. This one was no doubt dirty, but
without doubt.
The fact that Henry Blackburn and his family are now having to deal with death threats coming off that, it feels really weird that we have to keep reminding people, and we did this when the NCAA officials were talking about receiving death threats to their families in their house, that you can absolutely look at this moment and agree that what Henry Blackburn did was wrong in the context of this game, was bad, and love your football team, without being a maniac and sending death threats to a kid and his family for what went on in this football game when the parties involved aren't even looking at this with that much.
I mean,
malice.
Who are you that types that out and hits send? I mean, obviously we can't sit there and say, hey man, do it face to face if you're going to do it. No one's going to admit they're giving a death threat to anybody.
I was going to say, yeah.
Publicly.
Don't do that face to face or in private.
We get it, but
send death
I mean,
threats to
what kind of a loser do you have to be? I mean, an absolute loser in your life to sit there and make a death threat to a college kid in a football game.
We've seen a lot of this recently like Alexander Madison dealing with such horrible racist things that people sent him after the Vikings lost. I mean, and he wrote on his Instagram story, he reshared some of them, and he was like, I just want you to know, I'm not trying to amplify these. Those weren't his exact words, but he was like, I'm a human, I'm a father, I'm a son. He was like, what is happening when you have your humanity stripped of you? But this is something that we see happen to athletes all the time. This is something that even, there's always some sort of hubbub when it's like, oh my God, so-and-so athlete takes photographs, or like so-and-so likes to paint. And it's just like this inability of people to see them outside of the box on their screen and what they represent for that fan. And if you're an angry person looking for an excuse to really unleash some vitriol, whether it's that you're a racist piece of or you are a Colorado fan completely overcome by emotion, these feel like, I often say that sports are like a safe place to feel emotions for people who don't feel comfortable feeling emotions. And I think they're actually a very dangerous place for people to feel those emotions when they become so strong and channeled at actual people and their families.
Well, and I think the difficult part, and this happens to people in our job too, where if you have a certain amount of distance between you and the product on the field or on the rink or on the court, and you don't often get back out there and get involved and get in the middle of that and see these real people, you can kind of forget that. You see it reflected in the way a lot of people in sports media will talk about players and athletes at certain times there, because they don't have that frame of reference of getting to talk to them about their family life out there. I think that's why you see so many people in the media often more sympathetic to player causes than most fans are. And sometimes it can be frustrating for fans, but when you live it on the other side, like I can remember friends of mine at Notre Dame when we had a couple of bad games and a couple of plays went wrong. I had like close friends of mine who had to call campus security because they had received enough credible death threats to have to warrant extra care and extra precaution just walking around campus after the game. Like that wasn't something that was just a headline on .com. That was their life. And having to see that up close and the effect it has on someone who then is supposed to wake up and, in the case of college kid, try and go to class or do any number of normal things on a college campus that are already abnormal for you in that case, when you don't have that frame of reference that often fans don't. That's why I think storytelling around the sport is so important, because it does remind you what these guys are. You get this kind of barrier and you get this kind of hate speech that gets thrown.
Yeah, like I said, it's easy to type, easy to hit send. And then it's not just fan to athlete. I hadn't realized, is it increasing the fighting going on in the stands? I mean, the absolute tragedy in New England with that gentleman being killed, a couple, 2 punches to the head, and then his head hit the ground, and that was it. He was dead. I mean, and then after that, they showed a montage of others. Yeah. Like this year. Is this something? I know it's been around a long time. It's not like I'm naive and doesn't know it doesn't happen. But is it happening even more now? We obviously know alcohol is a big part of it, but it just seems like it's happening more.
I think with a lot of those things, unfortunately, I don't know if fan behavior has changed all that much. Maybe post-pandemic, people have had a different time.
But now we have a phone that can obviously.
I can say I think we see more of it. It's more covered, and unfortunately, that's the case. And so, man, just a reminder: heading into another weekend of sports, we get so excited about this. Get excited in the right way. Like it doesn't need to cause harm to you or anyone else physically or emotionally or otherwise. We can all be cool about this. This is a fun time of year. We spend all off season look forward to getting back to these moments and getting back to these Saturdays. And for a team like Colorado, we're excited about another one coming up this weekend. We get to do it all again, where now we have their next real test of going up a weight class in competition. Don't be weirdos about this.
Leave the physical play on the field. That's where it belongs.
Yeah, I mean, don't hurt each other. Don't say terrible things to each other online. Let's all be cool about this. Take a deep breath. We will be back to discuss a little bit of movement with Damian Lillard next on GoJo and Golic. All right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Finishing off our first hour with our dear friend Charlotte Wilder here on a Wilder Wednesday. And before we get to, because as you know, you can check out Charlotte Wilder and Amin Elhassan on Oddball, great daily NBA podcast, wherever you get your podcast, and of course, right here on the DraftKings network. Before we get to some relevant news around Damian Lillard, Dad, we were talking about the now apparently confirmed, according to WIP Sports Talk Radio in Philadelphia by Jason Kelce, brother of Travis Kelce, that him and Taylor Swift, he believes are 100% an item and that he hopes it's going well. It prompted a discussion about power couples. And now, Dad, you have put together a list or found a list of power couples that you want to see where they fall in.
I want to go around this list, keep it orderly. Each time, Jessie will start with you, then to Charlotte, then to Mike. Quick answers, because I got about 6 couples here. Are they more popular or bigger power couples than Travis and Taylor Swift? David and Victoria Beckham. Jessie.
Yes.
Ooh, Charlotte?
Wow.
No.
I'll go no.
No? Okay. Let's go to, you can expound upon it a little more if you want.
All right, well, you said quick answer.
Quick answer. I didn't say one-word answer. I said quicker answer.
Yes, because David Beckham was bigger, in my opinion, in the world than Travis Kelce is. And Posh Spice was part of the most infamous girl group of all time. So their equal power is just...
I agree. And they've been together a long time.
Yeah.
So you're giving points for length.
Well, so I win that one, is what you're saying.
Yes, okay. Yes. Jessie, Justin and Hailey Bieber.
No, they are not. She was not anybody before they got married.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll also go no on this one too. Although, I mean, like, again, a pop star of, at his height, very close to the same, but I think at this point, Taylor Swift has overtaken that.
Okay.
Again, she gets points for longevity there.
All right.
Well.
Yeah, I'm out on this one. I think they're hanging on to, they're trying to make fetch happen over and over again, as it were.
Okay. All right. Jessie, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky.
No, Rihanna she is a monolith. She is incredible, but A$AP Rocky is a supporting character.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. A$AP Rocky kind of, and Travis Kelce kind of like feel like in the same vein when it comes to this. So I might put these two on. This honestly feels like a decent comp here as far as what it could be, because we've also seen A$AP Rocky, who's been successful in his own right, but very supportive of Rihanna. He's always done right. We've seen it reflected in a lot of the things they've done publicly together. Even I think at the Super Bowl when she was doing the halftime show, he had like the iPad out like a supportive dad videotaping it from the field. And so I feel like that can be Travis's life if you're looking for a model. I think this one is it. Rihanna also someone who stares eye to eye with Taylor Swift as far as a massive icon in the world of pop culture. And
Charlotte?
Ways.
Yeah, talk about a wife guy. A$AP Rocky is he's got that down, which I appreciate. But I do think it's a similar comp, but I do think that Travis is a little more current in his own. I feel like A$AP isn't
right.
I feel like there was a time where he commanded a lot of pop culture attention, but I feel like he's sort of done that a little bit less. And Travis is still, it would be like if Travis were retired from football and an analyst or something now. Like us.
All right, I'll go 2 more. Jessie, Chrissy Teigen, John Legend.
No, not as big. Taylor Swift is so much bigger than both of them that she just overpowers them completely.
Okay.
I'll say no right now, and especially off the strength. And I think the one thing I want to factor in for Travis is now that the podcast has done so well, like they chart on the non-sports charts. Like they have kind of broken contain, and especially after last year's Super Bowl, I think we're going to see their star kind of exist in a different place in the world of sports for them. So I will give them the card there.
Yeah, no. They did a whole vow renewal in Lake Como recently, and I don't know. There's a lot of
cringe.
I have a lot of thoughts about Chrissy.
Okay, I'm gonna move past Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez and go to my last one.
Wait, why?
I know that.
Oh my God.
So do you go with that one? I mean, that's the second time around, a second stinter.
But they weren't married the first time.
I feel like this is sort of like the more, the funnier Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift pairing, but maybe on par.
All right.
To be honest.
Last one I'll go with, Jessie. Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds.
Ooh.
Best looking couple, right?
I want to say yes, they might be more of a power couple because they're both so famous. And like we've said, Travis Kelce, we're also in sports. So we have to keep in mind that Travis Kelce means a lot more to us than it's going to mean to everybody else hearing. There's people who are Googling Travis Kelce to figure out who Taylor Swift is dating.
100%.
Yeah, that's true.
I would agree. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are the goal.
That's it, right?
They exist at the mountaintop here, at least in my world, Charlotte.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just letting how I feel about people influence whether I think they're bigger or not. You're probably right. Because most people who know Taylor Swift know Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds because they're all best friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, man, what a best friend group there. Yeah, Blake Lively did a phenomenal job directing the "I Bet You Think About Me" music video. It's all just incredible stuff there. So, all right, this is kind of a good litmus test as we get to see them released into the wild. Now we know that we've heard it confirmed verbally. The next step is the first time we see them photographed in public by paparazzi somewhere.
I cannot wait. It's going to be in New York. They're going to be leaving, like, some restaurant that is, they're going to be leaving, like, the fancier version of whatever Soho House is these days, or Electric Lady Studios. Maybe Travis is going to, like, I could see him making an appearance on a song.
Yeah, I didn't bring up one of the latest because I really don't care about it. But Kim Kardashian and Odell Beckham Jr. may be linked together.
Saw those rumors the other
well.
day too. I like how we're also just phrasing stuff as they've been hanging out.
Yeah, hanging out. That's the term. Hanging out.
I enjoy that. That's
watch who you hang out with because they're going to put you together.
Right.
Like some people are truly just going to be like hanging out, like they got together to like smoke weed and watched like old episodes of SpongeBob, and now they're going to be like, oh, everyone thinks we're dating.
They have a ton of mutual friends too. Somebody pointed that out. They were like, these two have so much overlap in their friend group. They could have literally just been spotted leaving a mutual friend's house.
Right, exactly.
I'll just say where there's smoke, there's either fire or a new pope. So we'll see what's happening.
Well, there you go. Because we were going with the Shakira and Tom Brady for a while after what's his name's party, right?
The white party.
The white party,
Michael
Rubin's party, yeah.
Oh my God! Where there's smoke, there's either fire or a new pope.
That's an all-time.
Depends on the color of the smoke.
The guy who runs the out of context GoJo and Golic quotes. Make sure you get that one up on a poster because Charlotte Wilder was in the kitchen cooking.
That's
with
a good
that
one.
By the way, Charlotte, quick 1 minute headline here. This is all I need from you. A 1 minute response. According to Mark J. Spears of ESPN on NBA Today, a mystery Eastern Conference team has reportedly emerged in the pursuit of Damian Lillard. We know it's all long thought to have been a done deal with the Miami Heat. Do you have any idea who this mystery team might be? And do you think this prompts anything different to happen?
Well, Spears, on his appearance on NBA Today, I believe he said, would the Celtics do it? Which to me is either a red herring or trying to trick us into thinking it couldn't be them because he said it. I feel like it would be either the Sixers or the Celtics. The Celtics or the Sixers. The Sixers would be fascinating if the two biggest dramas of the offseason, where is Dame going to go and what the heck is going on with James Harden in Philadelphia? Collision course would be very, very exciting for everybody involved. I don't know if I believe it. I don't know if he would ever end up anywhere other than Miami. And I have a hard time thinking he will stay on the Blazers. But I'm as interested in this drama as the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce stuff. So it's a lot today.
Would be interesting if he went to the 76ers in that drama, but at least you might get someone that might consistently play well in the playoffs.
That is true. And I mean, Portland would get what they've always wanted, which is a star that keeps them just relevant enough without having to necessarily deal with a deep playoff run. This is one of those that people post on Twitter and say, who says no? Yeah. James Harden for Dame Lillard, straight up. Charlotte Wilder, we always say yes, our premier wife guy. Thank you so much, friend. We really appreciate you.
Oh, always a pleasure, guys.
Coming up next, Andrew Whitworth slides on in next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. I'm Jessie Cofield. Giants at the Niners this week. They're fresh off that comeback win over the Cardinals, guys. Giants are 10-point dogs in this one. The total is 44.5. And New York has a tough task here, okay? Their injury report not looking good here. Saquon Barkley dealing with the ankle. Ayuk also dealing with an injury here. So, guys, what do we think about the issues plaguing New York right now and overcoming being 10-point dogs? It's not looking good for them after that incredible comeback that they managed over the Cardinals.
10 doesn't seem like enough.
No,
Yeah.
I know this is the NFL where that is a mountain to climb when you see that reflected in the line. And we are hopeful as we look forward to Thursday Night Football to talk to Andrew Whitworth, great analyst over there, former All-Pro and Super Bowl champion. But, Dad, looking ahead to this, I was on Locked On Giants podcast yesterday, and they asked me, hey, what do the Giants have to do to maybe go toe-to-toe with the 49ers in this game? And I don't want to be disrespectful because I think we all think this Giants team is trending in the right direction overall with the coaching staff and some of the pieces involved there. Saquon Barkley, you heard Brian Daboll come out and say, we don't count him out. He's a really fast healer for how this might go for him. They kind of considered him week to week, but for the problems that have ailed the Giants, and I think they're, a couple of fold here. First and foremost on offenses, they've been banged up along the offensive line, right? Andrew Thomas, their best offensive lineman, was out in this last game here. They're young and fresh on the interior. They've tried a couple of different line combinations. This is kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are looking to take the next step going into this season. The 49ers are not hospitable grounds for your next step ideas as an organization. This team is a weapon right now. They are one of the most talented, if not the most talented teams in football, and they have come in playing clean football at a time of season where that's not normally the case at the beginning of the year. And so for Brock Purdy and this bunch, for Nick Bosa and company, I just don't feel like this is the kind of matchup where good things can happen for you in New York.
No, I don't either. I think they're going to be in trouble in this game. They stayed out in Arizona after the game out there, the comeback win, because their game is in San Francisco, so they didn't go home. And you heard, as Mike mentioned, Brian Daboll say he's a quick healer in Saquon Barkley. We're not ruling him out. To me, there is no shot he's playing. If you played Sunday, maybe. But he's had this twice before. He missed 3 games in 2019 with an ankle. He missed 4 games in 2021 with an ankle. So I don't see him on the field Thursday. They do have 11 days after that. So is it possible he can get back for the next game? Matt Breida, Gary Brightwell, Eric Gray are the guys that are going to fill in. Breida was with Daboll in Buffalo. Also, he can pass block, so you'll probably see him in there to help out, knowing the offense. But this is, I think, just going to be too tall of a task. It is football. It is the NFL. You never know what's going to happen with that oblong-shaped ball. But it's tough to think that the Giants can put together anything consistently that would overtake San Francisco without San Francisco having a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this game.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. If you're a Giant looking for hope, it would have to be the 49ers coming down off what's been their standard so far last year, certainly the last few years, but starting off very strong. through the first couple games of this season. For more on what's going on in Thursday Night Football and the rest of the NFL here, very excited to bring in former All-Pro offensive tackle, Super Bowl champion Andrew Whitworth, who's now doing a great job as an analyst over with the crew on Thursday night on Prime. Whit, what's going on, man?
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Doing well. Still amazed out in Tahoe that you have a single-digit handicap. I still don't know where that came from, but unbelievably impressive. How did you do out there, by the way?
I did pretty good. You know how it is. It's an up and down week, and you have a good day and a bad day, and you love golf, you hate golf. So that's always my relationship with the game. But I played pretty good the first day, not as good day two, and then kind of got it going on day three.
It seemed my bad day coincided with drinking a lot of Fireball on the 17th hole, and that didn't work out too well for me. I learned a lesson. Let me just say that.
Yeah, that can happen out there real fast. You can get caught up in the moment. There's a lot of good energy and a lot of fun on that golf course during that event.
You know what? I'm just glad most often when people think of the good golfers on a football team, it's the guys that have a lot of time. So a lot of times it's the specialists, it's the quarterbacks because they're not getting hit. I'm really happy to see big guy representation in the world of golf from you, man. I don't feel like there's a lot of big guys out there doing this.
That's right. That's my rep. I try and get in there and represent the big fellows. But, I actually had a little time at the end of my career. I got a chance to miss a few practices there. So, I felt pretty good on Tuesdays. I got a little grief for my golf swings on Tuesdays and my no practices on Wednesdays sometimes. But, hey, it's all in the medical plan for the games. It's way over my head,
Listen, those are organizational decisions from the top down. I'm just the recipient.
Hey, bottom line is you earn those vet days. Yes. There's no doubt about that. So Whit, take us inside now this week for the Giants. For when you were playing, when you lose a top player, Saquon Barkley, highly doubtful he's going to play. How does that, and then especially in a short week, take us in the meeting rooms on the practice field of how the offense will deal with that?
Well, I think you look at it, you go into a short week, you're on the road, and they decide to stay out in Phoenix for the week. It's going to be a challenge for this team to show up and play well Thursday night because those guys, especially somebody like Saquon, anybody that's been around him and who he is as a player, you can imagine they lean on him a lot, not just as their unbelievable running back, but as just the guy and kind of the presence in the locker room and everything. That's going to be a tough week for them. That's going to emotionally, it's going to be tough because he's who you lean on in football games, and he's also your leader. And so I think for them on the road, maybe being out and just together, this can kind of create a little bit of an atmosphere of, hey, we don't have Saquon because he's going to be injured, but it's us. We're on the road. And that's the best part of the road in the NFL sometimes is sometimes you see teams where they have back-to-back, maybe 3 road games in a row. They kind of just say, you know what, forget it, man. It's just us. Let's go into this place and do something crazy. And it almost gives them this emotional boost. And that's what you hope for this team because they're going to need it to be able to win a football game against this San Francisco 49ers team without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, and for them, I mean, the start of the season goes all the way back to that drubbing on Sunday Night Football to open the season against the Dallas Cowboys. Went early in the NFL regular season, especially in that world post that 2011 CBA where you got less time on the practice field. We see now the preseason, there's fewer games. More teams are not playing their guys during that. How do players approach this first portion of the NFL season as you're really just starting to get back into the swing of things?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that we can't overreact in the first couple weeks of the season because really a lot of these teams, this is the first 2 times in weeks 1 and 2 that they've all been on the football field, all been going full speed and saying, all right, I look at some of these linemen that aren't playing in the preseason. It's the first time the quarterback can actually get hit. You've been practicing in practices where he's wearing a red jersey and a defensive lineman can't really finish their rush because they're going to get thrown off the practice field for touching the quarterback. And you get in a game and it's like, oh man, they just blew up the quarterback back there. It's like, yeah, that's NFL football, So even the Eagles line, you look at them week 1. I mean, what a tremendous group they were all year last year. Struggled in pass pro in week 1, because you haven't played a lot of live reps of pass protection. And I know for me, even my last couple of years in LA, we wouldn't play in the preseason. That first game, that's the most nerves and jittery I would be going into a game because, man, that I could even remember in my career just because you haven't actually done live reps. And so I think we're going to continue to see if this is the progress that we go on and somebody doesn't adjust to playing a little more, we're going to continue to see teams struggle a little bit in week 1 or 2. It's just going to be knocking the rust off and getting a little bit of those jitters out of playing in a big moment.
So for fans to hear that, for you, how many games, if it took that many, did it take to where you felt like, okay, now I'm in my groove, I'm in my rhythm?
Yeah, I started to feel at the end of my career really because I kind of that whole stretch was the last half of my career. Things continually changed. I felt like it really took, week one was kind of more to getting those nerves and getting that, all right, I am the player that I see myself being. The things that I practiced and things I felt and practiced are real. I can trust some of those feels. And then week two, it's like you kind of took another step, and then you kind of got in that groove in 3 and 4. And so it's almost like you had to treat yourself like, hey, I want to be on a constant progress through the season, not necessarily that I'll always start off week one the cleanest game, just because even in live rushes, you haven't even seen a rusher. You play a Micah Parsons week one. Like, when you face him, there's a feeling out process of like, ooh, okay, I'm 38 now. Like, am I moving quite like I was when I was 36? So all those things take time to get used to.
You mentioned that time it takes. It seems like for the other team in Thursday Night Football this week, the 49ers, it's been no time. They hit the ground running in a way that very few teams in the NFL can claim right now. Is this the best team in football at the moment, Whit?
Oh, I think they are without question. You look at it, they have a all-pro at every level of the defense on both sides of the football. I was talking about that the other day. That's crazy to me. I mean, the secondary, the linebacker group, the defensive line group on offense, the offensive line, the tight end, the running back, and a receiver. Every level of the defense, they have an all-pro. And Brock Purdy, we can say what we want, is starting to play like he's a guy who's going to be an all-pro eventually. So, that's the thing. This football team is unbelievable. I think outside of a couple deep throws that Purdy missed in the Rams game, I mean, that game would have been a lot different, and so obviously the Rams played great in that game. I think better than people thought, but this football team's really, really good. And I look to them to be a team that I think is built to last throughout the season. And I think on the flip side, you look at the Giants, it's a team that got blown out in the playoffs, blown out in week one, and then we're getting blown out in Arizona. And I think something finally clicked and said, hey, if we don't do something about this, this is how every game's going to go. And they made a huge comeback. So can they build off of that positive energy and do something special in San Fran this Thursday?
One of those all-pros you mentioned, Nick Bosa, and we've seen through the early portion of the season, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt, they've all shown up in bunches here. As a former O-lineman, you're getting ready in a game week for a team that's got one of those game wreckers on the other side. How do you guys approach one player like that who can be so destructive to your offense?
Well, I think, every team's different, depending on, I like to use the word exposure, of how much exposure there's going to be to their line to a great player, right? Are they going to drop back pass a lot? Are they going to try and move the quarterback? A lot of play actions, different things like that. Or do they have a plan in place to help the guy who's playing them? And, I think whenever you were a top-notch tackle, somebody who's considered really good, and you were going against a guy like that, it really came down to, hey, this week of all weeks is a week that technically I've got to be on my A game and I've got to play the best of my ability. And that's why a guy like Andrew Thomas for the Giants would be a huge factor in this game, whether he plays or not, because they need somebody like that. If not, they're going to have to devote so much attention to him. The rest of the San Francisco 49ers D-line's really good as well, and that's going to present all the problems for them to want to drop back and throw the football.
So, Whit, at this point, we have 9 0-2 teams. Some we expected, others maybe a little surprised. Of these 4 that are 0-2, New England, Cincinnati, the Chargers, and Minnesota, who do you worry least about and who do you worry most about?
Oh, man. Well, seeing as how one of them I picked to go to the Super Bowl, I'm a little concerned.
Me too.
About the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
So I'm a little concerned there. I'm concerned about the Chargers just because – I just continue every year I fall for it. I think, man, this roster's so talented. They're going to win. I start saying I don't see how they don't win every game with the 2 rushers they have, with who they have on offense, the left tackle, everything. And it just doesn't happen. But I think I get less emotional about that one because I think they're a team I put in that category that the reality in NFL football is you either show the ability to go win games, tight games, or win big-time games that mean a whole lot late in the season, or you don't. And until the Chargers do that, honestly, I really don't react to them as much because they haven't proven to me that they can be that kind of football team. Whereas in Cincinnati, I think for me, my worry is not really that they haven't proven that. They've shown the ability to go win 12 out of 14 games and go on these streaks where they get themselves in the playoffs and look like, well, wait a minute, this is the team I watched last year in week 1 against the Steelers. It's now playing the AFC Championship game. It's crazy sometimes the runs they go on. But this one feels a little different to me because Burrow's hurt. They don't look the same on offense, and defensively, they're giving up 5 yards a carry on the defensive side of the football, and teams are staying on the field, moving the chains on them, which is not really something they were in the past. So I'm a little concerned about them right now. New England, I don't think I expected them to be a great football team. Obviously Bill Belichick team's going to compete, but less concerned. In Minnesota, I think I kind of expected them to have a little bit of a down year after 11 one-score wins last year. Usually that goes the other way the next season.
You know what? One team that surprised me is your old team in the Los Angeles Rams, who through 2 games got the big win week 1 in the division, and then really, stood toe-to-toe with San Francisco for so much of week 2. What's been the key for them to really come out on the other side of a down year last season and look like a team that's almost back to normal with entirely new faces there outside of the quarterback?
Well, I think some of the things we just said about how the Giants performed, to start this year and last year, getting blown out in their last game, some of those ghosts and demons exist in your head of thinking of when you failed or a problem. The cool thing with this Rams team, I went to the game Sunday. They're so young, they don't even care about the Niners-Rams rivalry. They have no idea the Niners have dominated them over the last 3 years. They're like, you know what? I'm getting to play NFL football today, and I'm hitting the dude on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And I think the biggest difference I see in this football team is how physical they are. They're young. They're flying around. Puka Nacua is a guy that you watch him every catch he makes, he falls forward. He never falls down. He never falls backwards. He can get lit up making a catch. He's falling forward. They are a physical football team right now. And I think that's really something for them to be excited about and really look to how, I said this in the preseason, I wanted to see what they look like come November, December, because they seem like a kind of a team talent-wise and young guys that want to fight, that they're going to just play. They don't care whether they win or lose. They're there to compete and play. And so I'm excited about them, man. I know Matthew Stafford and those guys have to feel good about the way these young guys have shown up so far in the first 2 weeks.
We've gotten to know Puka and Tutu pretty well over the first couple of weeks. Whit, you're an outlier playing 16 years. We know the average time in the NFL is way shorter than that, not even a handful. How difficult is it for veterans in locker rooms of teams with rookie quarterbacks where those teams are going to struggle to know one of their years in the NFL is almost going to be a wasted year?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I remember when Carson Palmer left us and we drafted Andy Dalton in the second round, and started as a rookie. And then, also when I got to the Rams, it was Jared Goff had played a little bit his first year, but really was considered a rookie year for him with Sean McVay coming in and everything else. So I've been through that. It's a challenge because there's things that you may expect as a veteran lineman that, hey, you know what, this should just be, hey, I should take it for granted that he understands this or that we all are on the same page about things, and you can't do that. And then there's frustrations you're going to have that the reality is you've got to give them time to experience the games and develop and make those mistakes. And so, I think it's really is a nurturing process to where you got to have an even-keeled demeanor and say, all right, what is it that I can do to help him? One is I got to do my job and protect the quarterback. And I got to give him great pass protection. I got to give him great leadership in the run game. Let's over communicate these checks to try and make it easier for him. And so I think you see those situations where they work a little better for a young quarterback when there's a veteran center, when there's a veteran couple guards, when there's some guys that can say, hey, man, you know what? We got the mic call on this stuff. You don't worry about it. And so I think some of those type things you see that you better have some experience up front for this young man to give him a chance to take some of those things off his shoulders all the time.
So conversely, and we only got a couple of minutes left here, we appreciate your time. When you get now all of a sudden a veteran there for you, when you go over to Los Angeles and all of a sudden they bring in Matthew there and you've got a guy, when did you first know, we've got a dude here at quarterback in Matthew Stafford that's the total opposite of having to deal with a young guy like that?
Well, I think whenever, you look at quarterbacks, anytime you can get a guy that's played as long and as well as Matthew Stafford has, you automatically have an advantage. Because I always said this, when that trade happened with him and Jared Goff, and you look at it even now, the way Jared's played, is as if Jared was 4 years down the road, that trade probably never happens. But you just get to go and we get this experience guy who's played in every offense. He's played against every kind of defense you can think of. He's taken on all the adversities of the NFL. He's still standing, and oh, by the way, he's crazy talented. I knew the first week he was with us, all right, this is different. When you walk in this huddle, there's no concerns, there's no worries, there's no, what coverage is this? He understands exactly what the assignment is, and he's ready to go. And I think he's proven it with this young football team. I think Matthew Stafford's only looking like this with this young team.
It's been incredible to watch, like you said, with all these new faces around him and with him looking healthy, what a difference it makes for this football team. We appreciate the time, man. We're looking forward to watching you all season long on Thursday nights. Thanks so much, and hopefully we can talk to you soon.
Yeah, of course, man. Appreciate you guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, Whit.
Yeah, it really, the Rams to me, probably through the first 2 weeks of the season,
one of the most,
if not the most surprising team, just because we had no idea with a roster that had to almost completely remake an offensive line that Whit was a part of, and skill group that's still without their best player defensively. Yep. Aaron Donald's looking around at that group too, not without a lot of work, knowledge of, I think they still got name tags on some of those guys.
But other guys stepping up. Yeah. Just as we talked about the two receivers nobody really heard of, all of a sudden they're taking it by storm, and Stafford is probably happy as hell that's happening.
Exactly. And we know for Sean McVay, there was a big reckoning this offseason in the last couple of years of, hey, was he going to continue to coach? How did he want to go about this? And all the things that Whit mentioned there are what you heard coming out of camp. Writers like Jordan Rodriguez were saying he wanted to get back to being a more physical football team. He wanted to mix in a little bit more of the play action stuff that was a hallmark of the early part of his career, that when Matthew Stafford came over and they wanted to do more spread out 4 or 5 wide stuff, more drop back stuff, kind of blending those two worlds now with this new crew, all of a sudden got them in a much better place. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the world of golf and some comments from Phil Mickelson yesterday on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. On Monday, Phil Mickelson announced that he is not going to be wagering on football games this season as he is recovering from a gambling addiction. He was really candid, saying, "It affected those I care about in ways I wasn't aware or could fully understand. It's like a hurricane is going on outside and I'm isolated in a shelter, oblivious to what was happening. When I came out, there was so much damage to clean up that I just wanted to go back inside and not deal with it." So for more context on Mickelson's gambling addiction, let's listen to VSiN's Brett Musburger's conversation with legendary gambler Billy Walters a couple months ago, who details a conversation he had with Mickelson on betting the Ryder Cup.
Phil called you once and wanted you to make a very significant bet on a golf match that he was actually playing in. Tell us about that, Billy.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed in the time that I was associated with Phil is in certain areas he was very naive and he was, I guess, kind of easily excitable. But he called me up and he was playing in the Ryder Cup at Medina and he wanted to bet $400,000 on the U.S. team. I thought to myself, I said, well, you know, he's had to lose his mind. I said, "Are you lost your?" I used some interesting words, but I said, "If you lost your mind," I said, "you know, you're viewed to be a modern-day Arnold Palmer." I said, "Don't you know what happened to Pete Rose?" And I said, "There's no way in the world that I'm going to do this." And he said, "Oh, okay." And then that was it. He never made the bet. He did try to make the bet. And hopefully he came to his senses after we spoke, and he never made the bet.
Guys, it's just a critical reminder on why it is so important to gamble responsibly. I mean, at DraftKings, we always preach about only bet what you can afford, always set reasonable limits for yourself. And if for any reason you need help, we strongly encourage you to contact your local responsible gaming organizations.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Dad. And with Phil Mickelson, it's been tough over the years because Phil's always been such a character in the world before the Live Golf admission. And then after that sort of became villainous in the world of golf, or at the very worst, least infamous in the world of golf for his involvement with that group, what it represented, and how that news came out to us. Phil's been a complicated first person to discuss publicly for a while here. But looking at this, and remember, we saw all the facts and figures around the dollar amounts that he had supposedly gambled, that Billy Walters detailed in this book, and all of that jumps off the page as absolutely someone that has gone and operated at as an extreme in this area. And so it's good, regardless of the things that we can still think. Like, we can hold two ideas in our head about Phil Mickelson at once, right? That we may disagree with the way that he went about his business and the way that he's publicly represented the Saudis, the case around Live Golf and his goals there, and also look and say, it's good that a person who clearly seems to have a problem in excess in this particular area of his life has recognized that and is trying to do something about it.
And it's weird to say, but he's fortunate in the fact that, and he even admits it, the money wasn't ever the issue. Ever since our financial security has never been threatened. So we look at the number he lost and we're like, oh my God, but that the dude is worth like $800 million. I mean, and just got so much more when he went to Live. So he said for him, it was the distraction and the fact that he wasn't present for the people that he loved. He said that's what was hurting the family the most, was he wasn't there because he was so worried about the bet he made. So if you look at the big picture of this thing, he's kind of fortunate, because how many stories do you hear of people who their life savings are gone for their family? And now it's not only a bad situation with their family, but they've taken all the financial stability or whatever stability they may have had away. His isn't gone and his isn't going to be gone. But he realized, I'm not near the people and involved in the people I need to be with because I'm too worried about the gambling. So that's one of the reasons that he said he's not betting on football this year. I don't know if he's done for good in gambling. I have no idea. I don't know. But at this point, he's recognized that it's taking me away from the people I love or changing the relationship, and I have to stop that.
Yeah, it's a good point and a reminder. Like, this comes up all the time with athletes where people look at the problems of people whose salaries they can read online and who know what they make, and they kind of discount them. And it's like, no, their problems are in a relative sphere, though. It doesn't make the pain any less real for you and the people in your life, even if you've got the money to be able to overcome what are, no doubt, the objectively more difficult at times parts and side effects of those decisions, those bad decisions, and the behaviors that accompany them. So it is good to see. We're certainly happy that Phil Mickelson is trying to do better in this avenue. Again, it doesn't change the conversation around any of those other areas. You're still allowed to be critical of Phil Mickelson. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that doesn't change. It's just another aspect that we look at, that if somebody realizes they do have a problem, as Jessie said, there are outlets to get help. And that's certainly the sign of someone who you have to seek that help,
it also
and to be helped. And that's the important thing, Jessie, right?
Yeah, and it goes to show that these problems can affect anybody. It doesn't matter how rich and famous you are. It doesn't matter how great your life seems on paper. These problems can affect anybody. And it is for me, I think it's cool to see him being so candid about how it was affecting his life. And he's saying, like, this is something that I had to address with my family and everything. So I think it's good that he's coming out and talking about it and not trying to sweep it under the rug, if you will.
Absolutely. So we wish Phil Mickelson well in that regard and what he's trying to do bettering himself in this particular area in his life. Guys, I want to switch gears here for a second as we look in the world of sports elsewhere. I know we've been pretty football heavy for most of the week, but Dad, we saw the news yesterday and actually involving the same doctor that worked on a football player here. Star baseball player Shohei Ohtani will miss the Angels' final 25 games, will probably still win the MVP, but also now just had surgery on that injured elbow, a procedure that is set to kind of, I think, change the course of what's going to happen with his Major League Baseball career. Because, Dad, the headline coming off this is he's going to have the surgery, he's going to be ready to go and come back as a hitter by the 2024 season, but not pitch. That would come up in the 2025 season there. And while that sounds good to say now, I still think now that this is the second time we're dealing with an elbow injury like this for Shohei Ohtani in his career, and just the fact that every year he's getting a little bit older and every year this is going to get a little more difficult, I do wonder if we're going to come out on the other side of this in 2024 and still have a chance at this two-way phenomenon that we've had in the sport.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. As we mentioned, already one Tommy John. In this surgery, the doctor said they decided to reinforce the healthy ligament that was in place. And as Mike mentioned, he's going to be a hitter next year. And hopefully he believes go back to being the two-way guy in 25, but he's a free agent next year. So how much effect does that have? Listen, this hurts his bargaining right now. It's all relative, gang. It hurts from the bargaining of the fact that we all thought his number was going to begin with 6. Sure. And now it may only begin with a high 3 or a 4. So he's going to be fine. But it is going to affect as a team negotiating with him, if in fact he's going to be out on the open market. We'll see if the Angels want to try and get him back and what they have to pay of overall what his contract is going to be, because the pitching is definitely going to be in doubt. You could sit here and say he'll be fine to go in 2025, but we don't know. We have no idea. And even if he does, we have no idea how long it would last.
I think the one thing I'd say is we probably discount often enough in this two-way phenomenon. Shohei Ohtani physically is a mutant.
Yes, he is.
That is a big, large, strapping. And we heard Brian Daboll talking about the healing abilities of his star running back in Saquon Barkley. I don't want to discount the healing abilities of super athletes and the things that his body might be capable of versus others, but it does feel like this is probably the beginning of the end of what's been one of the most unique rides in baseball. And as always, it goes back to, it feels like in some ways, it was wasted in a place that wasn't going to get him to the postseason the way we've seen from Mike Trout. We saw in the World Baseball Classic what a joy it was seeing Shohei Ohtani play meaningful games for Japan's team and what that could have looked like for all of us. We still got a ton of good out of it, and I don't want to act like it was any lesser. What he accomplished is so unique in the pantheon of baseball.
How unique was it? I mean, we only talked about him and Babe Ruth.
Yeah. And used it to basically slander Babe Ruth and say he couldn't hold Shohei's job.
That's exactly right. And the thing here's the amazing thing, is if he goes to a more of a contending team, he could still be the best hitter in the league. He may still be the best hitter in the league, and we'll still think we're missing something because he's not pitching, or at least not until 2025. So he can sign that $300-400 million deal and be worth every penny of it as the best hitter in football, or in baseball. Best hitter in football.
I bet he could hit the hell out of somebody. That's a big boy. Coming up next, we'll look at some of the best hits from this upcoming weekend in college football next. So welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We just had a shocking revelation in the last break as we were talking about Shohei Ohtani getting the elbow surgery recently that's going to hopefully get him back by the 24 season as a hitter. And a doctor who also performed Aaron Rodgers' surgery coming off that Achilles rupture on the opening night for the Jets is that doctor. Proud Notre Dame grad.
Yes, he is. I think Atrachi. I'm trying to, Jessie, am I saying that name right? Neil Atrachi.
Elatrash. We don't.
Atrash. He's an 81 grad. I was a freshman when he was a senior.
You guys are doing very different things on campus, it feels like.
I would say so. His career is really taking a different path than mine.
I just feel like he was paying a lot more attention in class than you were then.
He was pre-med, but he has worked on Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Charlize Theron, and Ringo Starr.
Wow.
To name
That's
a few.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he needs a better PR person because that's a pretty impressive list. And I feel like the only sports doctor we ever know is Dr. James Andrews.
That's exactly right. Maybe Doc Neal here is going to take over for him.
I mean, I would hope so with that kind of resume already under his belt here. We got to get him the agent that Brussels sprouts got.
Yeah. What? Or cauliflower.
Brussels sprouts or cauliflower. Like, you know how Brussels sprouts, for some reason, in the last number of years, really took off as like the side dish du jour at most of these high-end restaurants where you get it cooked and
put a little oil on it.
Yeah, you get the oil drizzle. There's bacon bits on top of it. Somewhere along the lines, someone made Brussels sprouts, a food that is inherently unsexy, a very sexy item to be included on your spread. We need that same PR person for our doctor here so we can get him on this James Andrews trajectory.
Let's get him on the show. This the show of record for Notre Dame, right?
Call him up.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. We will get the doc out here. We will work on that. In the meantime, guys, I want to take a look at college football's premier bleep stirrer. Now, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss are also embroiled in some controversy with a lawsuit involving a former player and some things that have gone on. So I don't want to make light of that in what goes on here on the field. We can talk about that story on another day. But as we look ahead to college football this weekend, Dad, this feels like a major tipping point moment potentially for Alabama in the regular season, going up against yet another one of Nick Saban's former assistants in Lane Kiffin, who came out this week and made some really interesting assertions in the media.
He's not afraid to do that either.
No.
He's not afraid to hit send.
So he doubled down on this the other day, but he was asked a question, what is it like going against Kevin Steele's defense, the current Alabama defensive coordinator who had a stop at Alabama before, but also time at Auburn and Tennessee, a number of stops along the way. And Lane Kiffin basically said, looking on the TV copy and what he saw and what he thought he saw there, it actually looked like another member of Alabama's defensive staff was calling the plays in that game defensively, not Kevin Steele. And that was just Lane Kiffin saying, based on what I know about this coordinator, based on what I know working with or working against him before, this is what I believe based on what I saw on the TV copy. That essentially implying that there was a demotion in the Alabama defensive room that was not made public to anybody else. Now, Nick Saban, unprompted, refuted those suggestions in his Monday press conference and said Kevin Steele is the defensive coordinator. He has all the defensive coordinator responsibilities. The only thing that we tried to improve from an administrative standpoint was game day administration of getting signals in quicker. So that was the only thing we worked on as a staff, and the whole staff made a contribution to that.
Yeah, and who knows what to believe, but I'd be hard-pressed to think that there would be a demotion already. Now, they did give up 34 to Texas, and Middle Tennessee and South Florida give up 7 and 3. So it's not like the defense was giving up a lot of points. But in the one big game they had, they did give up 34. But we have seen this defense give up some points in the last couple of years. So I would be hard-pressed to think there was a demotion at this point, not to say that down the road it could be. To me, the bigger issue is the offensive side of the ball, because they don't have a passing quarterback. They've been through 3 already. They're struggling on the offensive line. So that's where I would have more of my worry right now.
And Peter Burns, great host at the SEC Network, he kind of laid it out like this. Alabama, Ole Miss this weekend. Ole Miss has the 2 best quarterbacks in this game in Jackson Dart and Spencer Sanders, the transfer from Oklahoma State. Ole Miss has Bama's former defensive coordinator who knows the Tide inside and out. Bama's coming off its worst game in 15 years, and Bama's O-line's given up 10 sacks in the last 2 weeks. If not now, then when for Lane Kiffin and company here? And, Dad, you wonder, for a coach in Nick Saban whose mark for so long was he never loses to his former assistants. For so long, it was Jimbo Fisher and Kirby. We got to add Steve Sarkisian to that a couple of weeks ago with the Texas loss. I do feel like there would be something about losing to Nick Saban or losing to Lane Kiffin that would just make Nick Saban snap.
Hurt the most, right? Because
that would break him in places he won't
Lane
talk about.
Lane has been the most passively aggressive, if you want to use the word passively. You may take that out as far as saying things that you know where they're headed and what the intent is.
Well, and remember when Lane Kiffin was with Nick Saban at Alabama, he was always kind of seen as the thorn in Saban's side. He is simultaneously given credit for ushering Alabama's offense into the modern era, going all the way back to when Blake Sims was the quarterback there, and they really started to pace and space this thing. But also by the end of his time, when we get our yearly rite of passage of Alabama quarterbacks getting interviewed for jobs at the end of the season during their playoff push, and they essentially told Lane Kiffin to go home and do his thing with that, as opposed to being a distraction for the team, if I'm remembering that right. So he's always been someone that personality-wise seemed the most polar opposite of Nick.
Because why would you, if you're an assistant at left and a head coach facing him, how Alabama had been, why would you want to do anything to ruffle his feathers, right? I mean, it's still Jimbo Fisher's biggest win at Texas A&M is when they beat Bama a couple of years ago, but that tenure has not been a great tenure at Texas A&M right now. So normally when Alabama was ruling the roost of college football, any coach, let alone someone who worked with Nick, would want to say anything even near inflammatory that Nick wouldn't take out on you on the field and have his team take it out on your team. But they're just not that team right now, so this is, and I'm with you. For Lane, if not now, when? Mississippi always, especially Mississippi State, have those defenses. But on offense, you mentioned the quarterback in Dart's the leading rusher of that team. Now, again, they've had some easy games here in the beginning of the season. This will be a big test for him, but this could be the year.
2 years ago, Lane Kiffin authored the best season in the history of Ole Miss football, more or less, record-wise and accomplishment-wise for that team. This would probably put it in a new place. And there's always been a group of people that have talked about, hey, if and when Nick Saban does step down, is Lane Kiffin a guy that becomes a candidate for that Alabama job? I think there's a lot of interesting plots in one of many games that's going to light up this weekend. But, as we look, Notre Dame, Ohio State, certainly the headliner. Oregon hosting Colorado is one that feels big because of what Colorado's meant.
And it's during the day. I mean, last week was at 10 at night. They had unbelievable rating against a team they were 21 favorite. Now they're 21 dogs playing in the middle of the afternoon.
They're playing in the middle of the afternoon. Then they already announced the time for the USC game in Colorado, and they're going to be playing at 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific as a start time. How you like eating your pregame meal at 5:30 in the morning getting ready for that one?
That's
I'd
tough
still
call.
puke it up.
Yeah, you would puke it up anyway, no matter what. Me personally, I like that. Earlier the better for me. Get up, put my pads on, play, and be done. But that is pretty early. Players aren't used to that.
But so looking at this weekend's games, though, Iowa at Penn State, another big one, the first real test, we think, for Penn State and the Nittany Lions team that we expect a lot out of. But, Dad, it feels like the biggest overall impact on the sport as far as what's realistically possible. If Notre Dame or Ohio State wins that game, I don't think anyone will be surprised either way, right? Based on where Notre Dame's arrived, based on what Ohio State's always been. For Iowa and Penn State, that's still a team we're waiting to see the ball go through the basket on both sides there. You've got Clemson mixed into this weekend also with Florida State, where I think more people expect Florida State to dominate that one. But for Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin and everything going on, this could end up being the most meaningful game of the weekend, depending on the outcome either way. If Nick Saban and Alabama, who now announced Jalen Milroe as the starter for the rest of the year, if they're able to get things going the right way and right the ship against Lane Kiffin in a game everyone's paying extra attention to now, that goes a long way. And if they lose, the fire rises in this thing even a little bit higher.
The big thing to me is the Pac-12 championship game this Saturday, Oregon State and Washington State, the only two teams left in the Pac-12.
Oh, there we go.
See? The winner is it, right?
Show some respect to
That's
the Pac-2.
For the Tupac.
Oregon State, too. That is my copyright infringement that you're stepping on right there. Coming up next, we will finish this off with one of the best possible baby shoots ever. Next. Forgot the... All right, time to wrap up the show like we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to finish off your day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, 5-star rating. DraftKings YouTube, DraftKingsNetwork.com, Samsung TV Plus, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. I will keep saying it until you listen, until it is sunk into every pore in your body. But guys, let's get to this to start off with. Man, somewhere Van Wilder is just nodding his head in approval. As we saw the news yesterday, courtesy of On3, that Miami tight end Cam McCormick told reporters on Tuesday he will petition the ACC for a 9th season of eligibility. He added he's unsure if he's actually going to use it, but he just kind of wants
a choice, wants the option, right?
Now,
9th year. I mean, shouldn't he be a doctor?
You know, yeah, it's a lot of people stay in college.
He's been playing college football since 2016. Just let that ruminate.
So he spent the first 7 years of his career at Oregon. He redshirted in 2016, played 13 games in 2017, was injured the first game of 2018, and then missed all of 2019 and 2020 as well. He returned to the field in 2021 and played in 2 games before suffering another season-ending injury, and was finally healthy enough in 2022 to play 13 games once again. The 8th-year player has emerged as a key player on offense for the Miami Hurricanes this year, especially as a blocker. Dad, the #1 overall recruit in his recruiting class was Rashawn Gary, who's currently in his 5th season with the Green Bay Packers right now.
He has had an NFL career in college, no doubt about it. I just love the fact he says, I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I just want the option. He wants it in his hip pocket just to know it's there, just in case. As I've told you guys, as I will tell anybody, go back. Stay in college as long as you can. The real world, unless you're going into the NFL, the real world is overrated. Don't do it. Stay on a college campus as long as you can, even though you're there long enough where people think you're a professor.
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing at this point. So he's got his bachelor's, he's got his master's.
What courses is he taking?
I want to know what else he's working on right now.
Yeah.
We're going to go for a little JD here. How many letters can we add to this young man's name?
Yeah, that would be impressive if, in fact, he cares about taking any kind of meaningful class.
I mean, he's 25 years old, and being injured that much is the other part of this. Like, you've gotten burned so much by the injury bug at that point. The training staff, I mean, hell, you're the same age as 90% of the folks in there. You've got more in common with anyone in that room than you do with anyone in the locker room.
I'm going to say he's not going to be on the field for a 9th year.
I just feel like, man, he's probably going to be really tired when this is all said and done.
I'm so tired.
It's got to be hard to transition from 9 years of college or,
into the real world, right?
Yeah, into the real world. It's got to be tough.
Someone said that a guy, when they mentioned the career fair around him, a chill goes down his spine as he puts off that tomorrow for another day. So, hey, listen, Cam McCormick, Stay there as long as you can. Cherish it.
Could you imagine if somebody starting this year did it and was there 9 years and having 9 years of NIL?
Oh.
Honestly, that's a different ball game now. All of a sudden, if you're getting the bag, actually, I didn't think about that. I don't know what Cam McCormick's NIL package is looking like at this point in his career, but if you can get some of that money, then man, stay even longer there. Speaking of tight ends, let's keep the trend going and get to that. Jessie, as we had a very interesting celebration for a first time in the NFL for one player.
Yeah. Okay. So Colts third-year tight end Kylan Granson caught his first touchdown pass against the Texans on Saturday, and he decided he had to celebrate, commemorate the moment with a little photo shoot. You can take a look here. He posted this on Instagram, posing with the football he scored with, as if it was a newborn baby, as you can see. Caption, after 3 years of trying, it's finally here. And attention to details unmatched. As you can see, he's got a little flower behind his ear. His girlfriend was in a couple of the photos posing with him, again, like it was a baby.
Honestly, this is the best little kid photo shoot I've ever seen. Because we were talking about it before. Babies look weird at the beginning.
Totally.
Like they just look like they're so small and they're like little aliens at that point. And people were like putting them in these like fun, cutesy little pictures. And they just look like a little creature at that point. You still love them. They're still great. You know what they're going to be. You feel all the love in your heart, but they don't look nearly as cute as that football.
Yeah.
Jessie, did you ever do a photo shoot with your first child, your daughter?
No, I didn't do a newborn photo shoot because, like GoJo laid out, you know, they look kind of freaky. And I took plenty of photos of my newborn to have and to cherish those moments. And I thought she was cute, obviously, but there's something so cringy about when people put on Instagram, they're like, our beautiful angel is here. And you're like, that is the angel?
See, and you're allowed to say that because you're a mom of going to be 2 coming up soon.
Exactly.
So you can say that. Did you ever do a pregnancy photo shoot?
No. Maternity shoot.
Yeah.
It's not my bag. It's not my bag. I do not like that stuff. You were here when we had to take our headshots. Wildly uncomfortable. No.
I do like the idea of he should have done the maternity shoot before this.
Yes.
As he's leading up of like him with the football underneath his shirt with the hand. My favorite is the hand pose.
Yeah.
Like
the
honestly,
top and bottom.
I'll hit that every once in a while after a big meal. If I'm taking a picture, I can just rest my hand on top of my belly. It's like, oh, we're expecting a poop later.
Yeah. Seriously.
It's going to be beautiful.
Always leads back to that.
It always does. But congratulations to Kylan Granson on the first of what we hope are many beautiful football-shaped children in his life. Hope the family is all happy. Glad that the baby and dad are both doing well in this case. Let's get to the third. This one, really cool, Jessie. We've talked a lot on this show about how some of the recent Hall of Fame classes, we just did the College Football Hall of Fame class announced for this upcoming year, really got me feeling nostalgic. As we got some new names that are going to be up for the NFL's Hall of Fame class this year, Jessie, that nostalgia is through the roof.
Yeah, 9 players in their first year of eligibility are on this list. You can see them here. Talk about nostalgia. Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates really headlining the list here. What do you guys think?
Well, I think I still can't believe the last class last year. There was a writer, a couple people that said, I didn't see any locks in this class. When Joe Thomas is as big a lock as anybody when he got in. I mean,
my God,
it was crazy. This, to me, there's 2 locks, and it's Antonio Gates and Julius Peppers. Antonio Gates didn't play football in college. He played basketball and was one of the greatest tight ends to ever play. It was the all-decades team in the first years of the 2000s. Was right up there. It was one of the top as far as statistics in tight ends and receptions and receiving touchdowns. Incredible what he did in not playing college football. And Julius Peppers is 4th all-time in sacks. Now, I take that with a grain of salt because unbelievably, they couldn't figure out sacks before 1982.
That's always a thing that blows my mind.
It's like crazy.
We just figured out how to count in the 80s. So I get that drugs were prevalent in the 60s and 70s, but damn.
And then the one name that pops out is Deacon Jones on how many he would have had if sacks were counted. And some have said they've gone back and counted. He's at like 220 some. And the record is Bruce Smith at 200. But you're never going to be able to verify all that. But that's one of the most ridiculous things. But At this point, he is 4th all-time, a half sack behind Kevin Green for 3rd. He was when he and Dwight Freeney came out together, and Dwight's in his 2nd year of eligibility, and I hope at some point he gets in. Dwight's such a great dude, and was a great player as well. He was kind of that. Dwight was kind of that when the tweener became a position where that size used to be too big for a linebacker, too small for a DN, but he made it such a great position. But back to Julius Peppers. Should absolutely walk in, Antonio Gates. So those two right off the top of my head should absolutely be first timers.
Yep, those should be easy picks there. Jordy Nelson, who I'm sure Aaron Rodgers is still actively trying to campaign to get him back on the field with the New York Jets for next year. Brandon Marshall up for that as well. A couple O-linemen, TJ Lang and Josh Sitton. Talk about two guys that Aaron Rodgers is very familiar with as well.
Big old Haloti Nada.
Haloti Nada, who also very famously was a teammate of Chris Long's for a while, made the trip up Kilimanjaro, Chris Long's foundation, the Water Boys, that raises money and awareness to build wells in East Africa, goes and climbs that every year.
That's impressive enough, that size guy.
Haloti Nada has to be the largest person to have ever been to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't doubt that in my mind. Big imposing force on a lot of those great Baltimore Ravens defenses. Max Unger also in that list, too. The former Seahawks and Saints center.
3 linemen. I don't know if any of them are going to get in on the first shot around, but we'll wait and see. Congrats to all of them.
Congrats to all that group. I'm with you. Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates, welcome to the Hall of Fame. You guys, welcome to downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Thank you.